Hey, Coach, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. What a beautiful time of the year. It's the first week is awesome, but these 2 days are the days that I probably like the most of the tournament. The matchups are incredible.
Probably the best basketball, right, Coach?
It is. There's no doubt. I think that the underdogs that get hot are staying hot, and the teams that have been the strongest all year end up rising to the top. And I think when you look at these matchups today, man, what a phenomenal slate of games.
Yeah, and let's start with the one that I think a lot of our listening fan base cares about, which is LSU versus Michigan State, Coach. And a lot was made of the second half of the Maryland LSU game where Maryland started running his zone and LSU couldn't shoot their way out of it. They just looked a little hapless against that zone. Now, Michigan State does not run zone. It's been like a handful of possessions on the entire year. Give us the coach's perspective. Let's say you're in Tom Izzo's shoes and you see what appears to be a glaring weakness in LSU's attack, but it's not something that you do. Like, are you putting that in your game plan? What's your kind of mindset there?
I think every coach has some level of zone that you work on through the year because you're going to face it and you're going to put in something that you're going to use. For me, I probably ran about the same amount of possessions as zone as Izzo did, but we ran a segment of it nearly every day for 6 or 7 minutes, almost every practice the entire year. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, you want to prep, but two, you may need it in your toolbox someday to use. And so there's been a lot of listening to you guys and listening to the LSU staff. They've talked about it a ton. Is that maybe that's some jockeying in the media a little bit that they're talking about. They've worked on zone all week. That way, Michigan State says, "Well, let's not even jack with it," or does Michigan State just make adjustments as far as maybe they're going to what we call in the business muck or dork a guy, and they're going to back off and not guard them, and use that as a zone tactic and just sag off of guys and use a couple of different strategies based on personnel instead of running particularly a zone. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the strategy plays out. But there's been a lot of talk on both sides about zone that to the point that it's almost like I'm sitting there saying, okay, none of them are going to use it.
Right.
They're just using the media for that.
Become a smoke screen.
Yeah, now it's like who knows what to play. It's like it's like when you play rock paper scissors with someone and they tell you they're throwing rock right before you go, and then your head's just all twisted up.
How am I not surprised that that's a strategy that you've employed, T-Bob?
Look, it is the most infuriating strategy to run up against in RPS. Let's talk about Coach Tony Benford. Being a very successful college head coach, you can probably appreciate the position that he's in more than any of us. Just how tough is it to be that interim guy and now be on this stage?
I think that they as a group, and my hat's off to them. I think when you look at what him and Greg and Bill have done as far as totally made it about the team, they haven't talked about theirs. There hasn't been an ounce of Tony trying to jockey or posture to be the coach or different things like that. I think they've handled it masterfully as far as they've separated responsibilities a little bit. They've even taken a little bit of the focus off of Tony sometimes and letting Greg, who's a great basketball coach, and same with Bill, talk and do media opportunities. So I think they've done as well as they can do. And, when I talk to people on the inside there, they feel confident that they can go out and execute the game plans that they're putting forth. So they've done a great job.
Southland Conference Coach of the Year back in 2016 and 2017. Head coach of the UNO Privateers, Mark Slessinger, joining us for a couple of minutes here on Off the Bench, talking tournament action, which gets going today with the Sweet 16. And, Coach, that last time out, Tennessee, Iowa, I thought was a fantastic basketball game. If you saw it early, you thought Tennessee was going to run away with it. Iowa stormed back, and then Tennessee was able to capitalize in overtime. Today's matchups, the one that intrigues me the most is this Tennessee-Purdue matchup. I just think that when you look at Rick Barnes' veteran group against Matt Painter's well-coached Purdue squad, when you look at today's slate of games, you got Purdue, Tennessee, Oregon, Virginia, Florida State, Gonzaga, Texas Tech, Michigan. Which one jumps out?
For me, I'm anxious to watch the Texas Tech Michigan game. Anybody who knows me knows how much I love defense and watching Texas Tech all year. I think Chris Beard is the National Coach of the Year for what they lost a year ago and what he's been able to do. One, to unseed Kansas with that string of championships, and then secondly, to replace guys with really guys that nobody had heard of and see them come back and play defensively at such a high level has been a joy to watch. And then Beeline is so talented offensively. They play so unselfishly. They live by our mantra at UNO of giving up a good shot for a great shot so much. And tonight it'll be a chess match in that game. And you look at Beard's bench, and he's got Mark Adams, who I think is as talented a defensive mind as there is in college basketball on one side of him. Sean Sutton, who I think is an extremely talented offensive mind on the other side of him. And then Chris has coached and won at every single level, small college JUCO, small Division I, big Division I. I think they're as good a group as there is of a coaching staff from basketball X and O in. And I think that game will be the one that I'm going to sit back and enjoy watching as just a coach and a fan.
Coach, I got Chris Beard and Texas Tech in the Final Four, and the only reason why I do is because I went on a 2-week stretch in the middle of the year where I was watching Big 12 basketball, and I thought during that 2-week stretch where I was watching, it seemed like every day that Texas Tech was the most complete team and the most consistent team, and the reason was because of the way that they defend. Can you go into more of his defensive philosophy? Because it seems like that they turn everything over from their defense. Their offense starts there, their principles, the way that they've just built their program seems like it's on a defensive mindset.
Well, so much of it is begins and ends with their ball pressure and how they guard on ball, their technique. Defense on just a philosophical level isn't hard. It's you stay between the ball and the basket, but getting guys to do that with everything else that's going on is a difficult task. And I think they master that one thing well. Now, what they're also great at doing is they're so prepared in their scout. You'll see teams adjust to what they're doing, and then they've already got their adjustment to their adjustment dialed in and ready to go. And I think it goes back to how good a coaching staff they have and how good they are. You know, we finished in the top 10 in the country in steals and turnovers forced this year, and we didn't press the whole year, and neither do they in reality. Part of it is where you're at in the passing lane. Really shrinking the court, if that makes sense, where you're going to really get the ball on the sideline, push them over to the sideline, shrink the court where now you're only guarding half of the floor, push them down to the corner where now you're only guarding that quarter of the floor, where the only passes you're giving away are going to be skipped, long passes away from the basket. And by then what ends up happening is they've either turned it over or they forced them into a late clock situation, 7 and under. Where there's only a few teams in the country that are really, really excel at that game. One being Virginia. When you watch Virginia, they're so calm and so good in 7 seconds and under on the shot clock. That's where they're most comfortable playing their offensive possessions. Well, Texas Tech is so good in that last 7 as well on the defensive end.
Coach, I know another team that's impressed you through this run has been Houston with Coach Kelvin Sampson. Tomorrow they'll tip it off against Kentucky, and it looks like Kentucky may or may not be without their superstar P.J. Washington, which will have an enormous effect on the outcome of that game. But what's been your impressions of Houston and Sampson on this run?
We played them a year ago and had just a phenomenal game over in Houston. It was like a 8-9, 10-point game, and we shook hands after Kelvin and I, and it was probably the most enjoyable game I'd coached in my tenure here because both teams played extremely hard. It was a clean-fought game. We each made adjustments on each other, and it was just basketball played the right way. And I think when you watch them, you see basketball played the right way. They play extremely hard. They're unselfish. They play with a little bit of edge. They really get out and attack in transition on the offensive end. And they I don't know that you can say a team that's 33-3 is a underdog or a dark horse because they're not. They're really good and really well coached and a complete team. And man, they're going to be fun to watch. I hope they can keep their run going.
You got a great voice in the sport, in college basketball, and relationships all over the country, in NBA circles and college basketball circles. Right now, the state of the game, there's dealing with a lot of subpoenas and suspensions and reports and shoe companies and middlemen. What's the state of college basketball from your point of view, Coach?
It's in a lot of ways it's sad because the people are getting at some point I hope people are held accountable everybody has the same set of rules. Everybody voluntarily takes these jobs. Student athletes voluntarily accept the scholarship and come to the school under the terms of the scholarship, whether they like it, whether they think it's enough, it's not enough. Nobody's forcing them to accept the scholarship in the terms of the scholarship that they get. Coaches accept the job in the NCAA framework that these are the rules that you're going to abide under. If they don't, they should be held accountable just like anything else. I do hope that the people that live outside the rules are held accountable for their actions because they made those under their own fruition. But there are tons of good people out there that are coaching and great student athletes that are doing things the right way. And I hope that amidst all this, that maybe the good stories rise to the top and at some point suppress the bad stories. Because there's a lot of people that are overachieving a lot. There's 353 teams.
Yeah.
So there's more. There's a handful of teams that are doing it wrong, but there's a good many of us that are trying to do it the right way and working their tails off and really making sure guys go to class and really trying to build leaders and men for the future, guys that'll be great husbands, great fathers, and great leaders on their job. And so hopefully people, amidst all this, hopefully the good stories inevitably outnumber the bad stories.
Great to hear from you this morning. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.